Good evening, everyone, and welcome to the first ever digital meeting of Action for Climate Mitigation here in Armstrong, BC, and of course, this is applicable everywhere. It is the 27th of July, 7:30 p.m. Pacific Standard Time. If you're here visiting us, whether you see this video now or later, and my name is Garen Avaloki Teshvara, if you don't already know me, and welcome to our home. And as you can see, I bought cookies. I did. There's cookies there. So I apologize that this happens to be, digital and we're not meeting hand in hand, and then you could have one of these very healthy, wonderful cookies. So let's get right to it. Why are we here? Why are we doing this at all? And I got to tell you that after a lifetime of being part of the environmental movement, I see now that there's going to be no one who's going to save us. So we're going to begin right there, and we have a number of things to talk about this evening. And as I said, welcome into our home. This is part of our kitchen, and you may see some cats on the side there as well. And we're going to start with that, the fact that no one's going to save us. So way back in 1972, okay, so a half a century ago, 50 years ago next summer, on June 5th through June 16th of 1972, the entirety of the UN member nations had the first ever climate change summit. And that summit was called the First Earth Summit. 1972. 50 years ago, a half a century ago. Obviously, there's no one who's going to save us. There's no way that in 50 years of essentially doing nothing, that we're all of a sudden now going to manage to do enough somethings to avoid what's already coming. Now, that's not to be got upset about. The reality, it's here, it's in front of us, it's observable. What we can focus on, however, is climate mitigation, is the ability to make the spaces where we live habitable. And there's a number of steps that we can take to do that. But before we get there, I want to talk about some of the current conditions and why they're worrisome and what you can do to help yourself out. So first of all, we're totally enmeshed in forest fire smoke. It's everywhere. It's not only being sucked into lungs and ventilation and everything else, it is also being deposited all over the place. So there's a few things you need to know about forest fire smoke. So all smoke contains a great deal of carbon monoxide. Now, carbon monoxide is a noxious gas that replaces oxygen in your red blood cells at a rate many times to one. In other words, it doesn't take a lot of carbon monoxide to rob you of oxygen, your ability to breathe properly. Now, of course, all that carbon, all that ash, acts as little tiny sponges, and it uptakes and absorbs all the other chemicals that are in the atmosphere already, all the pollutants, all the toxins, everything from your dioxins, your acid gases, toluene, benzene, those are all included. Not even to talk about when there's homes and structures that are burning, which add to the pollution. So if you're going to be outside, if you're going to have your children outside, you need to make sure, and I know this is the end of a pandemic, and you'll have to excuse us, we're in the middle of continuing to make cookies. But you really need to get those masks back on. And I'm not talking about the cloth masks. Those are not good enough. You need to go right to an N99 mask if you're going to be outside in this for any length of time. What we're doing right now is we're seeing a future of cardiovascular and respiratory illness that is going to sweep our population. All this continually inhaled smoke. The other thing, of course, is ventilating your home. You know, there's a lot of people without air conditioning who need to open their windows at night. You'll notice on the Armstrong Community Forum, I posted a document on how to make your own simple DIY air filter using your fan, and use it to slightly overpressure your home so you can keep smoke out, but get cool, clean air coming in at nighttime. That brings us to a little discussion about the heat. We're facing another heat wave this week again, and although the temperatures are going to get near 40 and certainly not into the 45, it's not so much the daytime temperatures that are critical to our environment and to us. It is the nighttime temperatures falling down to acceptable levels for our bodies to recuperate, for the normal events in nature that need to take place. And this is one of the issues that we're facing. So let's begin with the municipal level and what we can do as a community, and we're going to get to some real world actionable things that we can do very shortly here, so please bear with me. So this is a time, if you're concerned about the future of your children and the future of the grandchildren, and I want to make it clear, I don't have any children. I don't have any offspring to worry about. When I'm dead, I'm dead. And at my age, that's probably going to be coming relatively soon. But I am really worried about all the beautiful young beings I see running around on the streets of Armstrong. A lot of them still in carriages, as a matter of fact. You know, the babies being born right now. What sort of a world are they going to have? And what can we do right now? What can we do to help mitigate the climate change that we have to face? There's no stopping it now. There's no golden pill we can take. But we can make a lot of progress in a very short time. So let's begin with the forest fires and the municipal level of government. Okay, so first of all, we have a very out-to-date building code. I believe the last time it was updated was somewhere in the 80s, the 1980s. And of course, the country and British Columbia was a much different place climate-wise as compared to now. We need to enact at the municipal level, right here in town, our local government, building codes that are in alignment with what we're facing and will mitigate the heat and mitigate the harsher weather. So we can take action by working together and asking our municipal government, our city hall, to enact building codes more in alignment with what we're witnessing right now. Building homes that have a net zero energy loss. And it's not that difficult. People have been doing it literally for thousands of years. You know, I have witnessed places in the midst of the deepest deserts where the daytime temperatures are into the mid to high 40s all the time, where ice can not only be made, but it can be stored without any power or refrigeration thanks to the build of the building. These are things we can do. We can talk about new structures that are being built, single-family dwellings, getting away from asphalt, getting away from concrete driveways, and turning to more renewable sources. And I have a picture here I want to share with you. This is an example of a green parking lot. Now, it's difficult to see, but this parking lot is made up of simple recyclable tiles, in essence, that are filled with holes, the diameter of the white bits you see that delineate the lines. Now, obviously, when this parking lot is very dry, it's all brown and very short. And of course, the cars driving on it keep the grass from growing too long. But the point is this parking lot has no heat signature. As a matter of fact, it helps to cool the surrounding area. Parking lots like this can absorb up to 3 inches of storm runoff all by themselves and keep that out of the storm drains, reducing the opportunity for flooding. They also provide CO2 capture, carbon capture as well, built right into the parking lot. They're far cheaper to put in, they're more durable, more long lasting, and we can incorporate this right into our single family builds. The other thing is to update the landscaping requirements to ensure that any landscaping that's going in is a full xeriscape with the addition of deciduous trees. And we're going to talk about why that is so important. Last but not least, we have to talk about multifamily structures. So for example, in our community here in Armstrong, there is a lower income multifamily structure that is planned to be built. If we build that structure in the same way that we've built all the others, we're putting a whole bunch of people at risk in the middle of a heat wave. We're actually going to be compounding the problem. There's another problem we face that we can help deal with at the municipal level, and that is power requirements. You know, if you haven't experienced a power outage in an air-conditioned home that's relying on air conditioning in the middle of a heat wave or in the middle of the summer, you're fortunate. There has been thousands upon thousands of people already this summer who've experienced what I would say are long-term blackouts. In other words, loss of power for more than 4 hours at a critically hot time of the day, which around here is 4 to 7 p.m. Those are the peak hours where you're going to get the most UV exposure and the most heat. So we have an opportunity here to change the way we're doing things, and to change it now before we create any more structures, any more multifamily dwellings, any more single family dwellings that are going to add to the heat and add to the issue. So at a corporate and business level, we have, this is where the majority of the heat island parking lots lay. And this is where parking lots like the one that I'm showing a picture of here, and there are other options, including porous concrete, but this is one of your best options, where you're going to reduce the heat island effect. And we're going to talk about what a difference that makes a little later on in the video. So we can work together as a community with the corporations and businesses that are here to not only consider other sources of parking lot and to plant more trees in their parking lots and around their business, but to also consider adjusting work hours to compensate for the hotter times of day. Now, this seems a little alien to us here, but there are a number of countries that I have visited around the world, including Mexico, where the siesta, that's literally the purpose of it. There's a really hot, dangerous time of day that people shouldn't be working in. And around here, that's really 1 o'clock until about 5 o'clock or 6 o'clock. And there are businesses that rely on people to be outside or to be engaged in environments where they're facing the same temperatures that you would face being outside. And those businesses can help to reduce or change their hours to compensate in these times. The other area, and this is something very critical, especially since we live in a farming community, is looking at the water use in our community. Now, what's happening right now in heat waves, and this isn't, this year is actually a warm-up, no pun intended, for what's going to be coming next year. We need to be looking at the water use. And we live in one of the most water-poor areas in all of Canada per capita, believe it or not. farmers understand this better than anyone. It is taking more effort, more water, more work to farm in these changing conditions. Now, we have to begin the process, working with the farmers, converting fallow land to green spaces, to natural catchment basins for runoff water, for extending the wetlands, and eventually get to the point where we're considering vertical farming. Now, the interesting thing about vertical farming is you can take 700 acres of land and you can put it in a building the size of Costco, and you can keep reusing and retain 99% of the water that would normally be used. In other words, vertical farming uses 1% of the water resources. When combined with solar panels and wind resources to power the LED growing systems, you can put out dependable, pesticide-free, bug-free crops that don't rely on heavy fertilizers, don't rely on the weather conditions, which are ever-changing. And of course, what we're facing is a food shortage coming into the fall and a rise in food prices. So all of this sounds kind of dystopian, and I totally do understand that. And I want to talk a little bit about why trees are so important and why one of the easiest and simplest community projects that we can involve ourselves in together is the planting of deciduous trees. So we're going to take a look here at this little graphic that I've put up, and you have two roads in the same city on the same day. They're a few blocks away from each other. On the one road, you have no trees. On the other road, you have large trees overhanging the street, helping to filter out the sunlight, and you can see the temperature differences. 43 degrees in the air, around the mid-range of the buildings, 36 down where you're getting in your car, and 50 degrees on the pavement, versus a perception of 18 degrees when you're in the shade under the tree. What this doesn't show is the one thing that roads do 24 hours a day. Well, not 24 hours a day. They do it as soon as the heat hitting them falls to less than the heat they're holding. They begin to radiate that heat back out. So if you've ever walked by a brick wall that's been exposed to sunlight all day and walked by it after sundown, you will notice that that brick wall is still radiating heat enough that you can feel it against your body, even from a few feet away. So this is one of the greatest advantages of trees right here. It reduces the heat island effect. It reduces the radiation of that heat back out into the island that is the community, and makes things far more comfortable for people on a regular basis in their travels around. So let's look now at another image here regarding trees. And I'm going to unlock this one so I can actually move it. So the reason we should be planting trees replenish our oxygen, okay? They filter out air pollution, they help to filter out the smoke, and they contribute to better mental health and well-being. Trees are vital for the water we drink. They help to cool our cities and towns and are home to many species of plant, bird, and wildlife. Scientific research shows that forests and green spaces lead to significant declines in stress, improved rehabilitation, faster hospital recovery rates, and a decrease in the severity of symptoms in ADD. Trees sequester or trap carbon dioxide. They do this during the photosynthesis to form carbohydrates that are used in plant structures and return oxygen back to the atmosphere as a byproduct. Deciduous trees like maple will block solar heat in the summer and let sunlight in the wintertime. In a year, one mature tree cools like 10 air conditioners running continually. It absorbs 750 gallons of stormwater and filters 60 pounds of pollutants from the air. Stormwater ponds and constructed wetlands. This is something else that we can look at doing in our community. We can pair up with the Wetlands Society here, or you can form your own Wetlands Society. You can form stormwater ponds. They are retention ponds which help to, again, purify the water and help to decompose some of the pollutants and offer biological uptake of pollutants by plants, algae, and bacteria. And of course, constructed wetlands, when we expand our wetlands and tree the edges of our wetlands in, not only are we providing a fire break to the community, but we are increasing the natural ecosystem, flood control, water purification, and a habitat for wildlife and other organisms. This is something that we can do, and we can do so as a community. I guess ultimately the point is that we can't sit around and just talk about this anymore. We need to start engaging and taking real steps right now. If we're waiting for someone else, after 50 years, I can tell you that there's no one else. It's us. It's falling on us. It's falling on our generation right now. And we have the opportunity to make and affect real change. It's going to take investment. It's going to take investment from all of us. You know, I'm on a very small pension, really. We actually live below the poverty line. I can afford to put a couple $100 in for some trees. We need to get together. We need to make this happen. I'm going to be speaking to Chris Pieper, the mayor of Armstrong, this week. I would love to have some other people come with me in a delegation to put a little bit of community behind it, to open up a public meeting and discuss these, you know, on a larger level, and then to take affirmative action right now. That's it. That's all. I don't want to keep you tonight. Thank you so much for paying me the time out of your life to listen to this. I am very grateful. And I pray that we can start taking some real steps to ensure that the community we're going to leave for our children and grandchildren is a community that they can not only survive in, but thrive in, healthy and happy. Namaste. Have a beautiful night.